Welcome to the Recon Trader. In today's video, I thought I would share with you how I select the best cryptocurrencies to deploy my grid bots with. Now, before we get started, I do want to make it clear these selections are based on my strategies. They are not necessarily coins I recommend you trade. They are cryptocurrencies that are currently on my radar and that I trade on a regular basis, whether it be day trading or via bots. So with that all being said, you need to do your own recon and select the coins that you are comfortable with. Now, by the end of the video, I will be deploying a live grid bot on the coin that I select, and the platform I will be using will be Bitsgap. Now, if you're not familiar with Bitsgap, it's an all-in-one crypto trading platform. They've got a ton of features from arbitrage to signals. You can paper trade on their demo platform, and today we're going to be focusing on their grid bot. And if you're curious what type of investment is required to get started, you can actually get started for free. They offer a 14-day free trial. I will drop a link down in the description below. And if you use that link, you will get 14 days free of their Pro plan. And that's the plan I actually use. Now, after your 14-day trial, you can start out on the basic plan for $19 a month, and that will get you 2 active trading bots. If you want to step up to the advanced plan, that would allow you to deploy 5 active trading bots. So that's enough jaw-jacking. Let's get to the selection process and get a bot deployed. Now, as I mentioned, basically I pull my coins from my recon radar. I have typically 10 to 15 coins on my radar that I'm watching to either day trade live or to deploy bots on. So I'm very familiar with their price action. Now, if you're newer to the world of crypto and trading, you may not have a whole lot of targets on your radar. So you can start out by visiting CoinGecko, and it's coingecko.com. Gecko like the little green reptile thing. And you'll find a list of pretty much all the cryptocurrencies. I personally would not venture out of the top 200. So with that being said, let's start with my first 2 rules for coin selection. Rule number 1, I don't trade crap coins. Rule number 2, I don't trade crap coins. Now from here on out, everything else is pretty much guidelines rather than rules.
The code is more what you'd call guidelines than actual rules.
So currently, besides the obvious Bitcoin, ETH, BNB, Cardano, those are all on my radar. I actually have bots running on most of those. A couple other targets on my radar would include Chainlink, Stellar. Actually, I have a bot now deployed on Stellar. And what I'm really looking for in a target for a grid bot is something that is somewhat range bound. And what I mean by range bound is it is consolidating or trading sideways, or it might be consolidating and trading sideways and slightly trending up. That is what I'm looking for. I generally do not want to deploy a grid bot at the top of the price action, which your strategy may differ. If you deploy at the top of the price action, you may get a pullback and have the opportunity to buy the dip, and if you get it to bounce, then sell the rip. I prefer something more in the middle of my grid, like you can see with Stellar I just deployed a little bit ago. It is more in line with the middle of my grid. And so my overall grid, you see where Stellar was really chopping its way up, which all that volatility is great for profit. And then when it reaches its peak, it sells off. So there's your opportunity to buy the dip. And then it consolidates again. And then unfortunately, the market rolls over. So does the price action on XLM. And when we see a big pullback, to me, that's a buying opportunity. I want to be buying when everyone's selling, and I want to be selling when everyone's buying. And so after this big pullback, I'm looking for entry opportunities. I want to see it recover. I certainly don't want to catch a falling knife, but we have seen XLM has recovered and it's now starting to consolidate and move sideways. And that is why I deployed this particular grid bot about 40 minutes ago. Now, if we jump back over to CoinGecko, you see projects like Polkadot. That's another target on my list, along with Chainlink. And another bit of intel that you can take a look at would be the 24-hour and 7-day performance of the particular coins you're looking at. And most of the time I'm looking for that sell-off when it comes to a grid bot. And so in this case, I can see Chainlink over the last 7 days sold off almost 17%, today 4%. And CoinGecko provides a bit of a line chart for you to look at, and you can see where it really was actually consolidating for a while and then sold off with the market, has bounced, and is now moving sideways. So there's a possibility. Another possibility would be DOT or Polkadot. However, it's not sold off over the last 7 days, and so in reality it's recovered and is starting to consolidate sideways, and to get back to its low of a week ago is only 3%. So that's a good possibility as well. I'm not going to be deploying the bot at the top. I'm deploying the bot closer to the bottom of its price action. And you'll see I haven't ventured out of the top 10 coins, and there's already a couple good candidates to deploy a grid bot on. Not to mention I already have grid bots on Cardano, Uniswap, and obviously Stellar I just deployed the bot on. And so what I'm kind of trying to stress is you don't need to jump to the 1300 ranked coin to try to find an opportunity to engage a target. Now, with DeFi being the rage, you could jump over to DeFiPulse.com, and that would break down the DeFi coins for you and their rankings. And here we see Aave, outstanding target. Uniswap I already have deployed on. Synthetics I own long-term positions on. And so you might want to take a look at a segment of the market that is popping right now, and that is these DeFi cryptocurrencies. Now let's see if we scroll down if anything jumps out at me. A couple other really good tokens I would look at would be Atom and Aave. And we'll keep scrolling down. Luna is another possibility. It's off 11% over 7 days, 4.5% in the last 24 hours. If we look at this grid real quick, we see that it sold off with the market, but it was consolidating beforehand and actually popped right before the sell-off. It rebounded pretty quickly, has sold off, and is now moving sideways. So Luna would be a possibility as well. So now we have a couple possibilities like Luna, DOT. Let's jump back over to Bitsgap and take a look at configuring a grid bot. Now for starters, you need to pick the strategy. I typically go with their SBot strategy. It just seems to be the most profitable for me. It seems to work well in consolidating and also when it's trending up, not going straight up, but somewhat trending up. The exchange I'll be using today will be Qcoin, although you can see I have quite a few different exchanges already connected, but today it'll be Qcoin. And then the pair we'll be looking at is Luna USDT. And the chart doesn't look too bad over the last few days. We see consolidating sideways, a nice move up. The sell-off that we saw in Bitcoin, it actually rebounded pretty quickly and then has started to consolidate again. Now let's check our 6 and look a little further back. And I want to look back towards at least the first of the year, so I'm going to jump to 4-hour candles on the chart, and that'll make it a little easier to do. Okay, so a very zoomed out view shows Luna pretty much not doing anything but moving sideways for a long time. And then all of a sudden towards the end of January, we started to see this move up. And then it starts to consolidate again sideways. So if I wanted to do upper limit, I would pull the upper limit down into resistance. And so I'm probably looking at roughly this wick on this candle. This wick almost makes it up. This one breaks through, and then this candle approaches. And then if I wanted to look at support, I certainly don't want to see this project sell off, so I'm probably looking at support back here. And adjusting my grid levels to 90, I fill in quite a bit more grids. My grid spacing is 0.62%. Let's give it a quick back test. And what I typically look for is at least 1% today. Now keep in mind the back test results do not guarantee future results. You also have to keep in mind we had that big sell-off and the bounce. Those are going to affect results. And we're a little shy on the results I'd actually want to see, although they're not terrible. And again, these are the results based on my strategies, my battle plans. Yours can be completely different. You might look for 20% pop a day. I don't look for that out of grid bots. I don't think that's realistic. It happens, but I just don't think it's realistic. Another source to find grid bots, if you're willing to trade some of the other coins out there, would be Bitsgap. They have recommended strategies. And a coin that is actually on my radar is Ren. So let's take a look at Ren's chart and see what we end up with. Okay, so the chart on Ren, again, we see a bunch of consolidation, a big pump up, and then the sell-off. And now we're consolidating and moving sideways again at about the same level we were previous to this pump. This might be a red flag. This could have very well been a pump and dump. I do know some good news came out on Ren around this time frame too, so that needs to be considered as well. So let's check our 6 and look back. And so the history on Ren on Qcoin is limited. It does not go back very far. It only goes back to about February 3rd, and that must be when they were added to the platform. So when that is the case and I have very little history on a certain exchange, let's jump over to Binance and see if I can look at a longer history. And so on Binance, we definitely have a longer history. We can look back and see a history back to about July of 2020. Now, something to note, these two peaks back here, prior resistance essentially, could be a good level for future support. So around the 60-cent mark might be our support. So let's jump back over to Qcoin. And so if we throw in the lower price of 60 where we saw that support, we could see that would kind of be the low since it's been on the Qcoin exchange. And then if we pull our upper level price down into this resistance level, which if we look back see as resistance a little further back on the chart, and we end up with price action just a little over the middle of this grid. Now if you wanted to tighten your parameters up a little, you could actually pull your lower price level into this area, which we saw support after the Bitcoin sell-off. And we also see support level back in this region as well. It does dip below there a little. So maybe that'd be a good point for a stop loss. So let's say our lower level we want at 90. We'll put our upper price limit at 149. And by having the trailing up option enabled, that will follow the price action if it were to move up and out of the grid. Next, we're looking at our grid step or grid spacing, which is the space in between the lines of the grid. And the red lines represent limit sell orders and the green lines represent limit buy orders. So the bot will buy on the way down, buy the dip, and sell the rip up. And I need to determine how much spacing between each one of these grids I want. Now, I typically go somewhere between 0.49% to 0.90%. And remember, these are my guidelines, not necessarily rules. So let's see what grid spacing of 0.7 would look like. And that tightens up the grid fairly well. And so let's give it a back test. And what I typically look for is 1% a day on the grid bot is, in my opinion, very good. And we actually hit those numbers with these settings. Now with those settings, I do want to take a look at that 70 level that I was thinking as a stop loss. Let's lower the level to 70, which does require us to change our grid spacing because now we have more room and we've got to get our grid spacing dialed in according to the number of grid levels we're allowed to have on this particular bot. And so I can't go with my grid spacing of 70 because I would exceed the number of grids that I could have on this particular bot. So I'm going to look at a grid spacing now of 0.76 and I have 99 grids. Let's run that back test again. And the back test actually improved a little. I have met the 1% a day results. Now keep in mind, back test results do not guarantee future results. And so I ended up deploying the bot with the settings of my lower level at 70, the upper level around 1.49, The grid step was 0.76 with grid levels of 98. I do have the trailing up feature enabled, not to take profit, and you can now see the bot is live and engaging targets. And that pretty much wraps it up. I just wanted to do a quick video on how I actually go through the selection process of what cryptocurrencies I'm willing to deploy grid bots or any bot for that matter on. And I will be doing an update video on the performance of this bot in the near future, so now would be an excellent time to shoot that subscribe button. If you like this video, spike the like. If you have any questions or comments, leave those in the comment section down below. I will leave a link to Bitsgap in the description down below. And remember, never send your money into battle without first doing your recon. See you in the next video.